So what is up, guys? This is Nick here from Everything Tech, and welcome to this episode of iOS 9.3 for the iPod Touch 5th generation. As you can see, we're going to go ahead and verify this update, and we're going to kind of show you the update process, and we're going to skip through it. It actually took about 30 to 40 minutes to do this in real time, which wasn't very pleasant. So this is probably going to be the most torturous time. It's just waiting to get iOS 9.3 up and running on your iPod Touch, but it goes through several boot screens. So just put it off to the side, and it says hello upon update. So you're going to go ahead and hit continue right here, and then it's going to ask you to create a passcode if you haven't already. And I just put 000. I don't know why I pulled the screen back, but it's 000. But I will change it so you're not getting into my iPod. But anyway, we're going to skip this step. We're just going to hop over into iOS. You can put your iCloud settings if it is your device. Getting started, we're going to hop over into settings and show you that we are in fact running the latest iOS 9.3, which is the absolute latest, which is 12, I believe it is. Let's see what we have in about here. It is 13E237. All right, guys, now we're going to get in the boot up test of the iPod Touch 5th generation, and go ahead and boot it up. In real time, this took about 1 minute to boot up the device from a cold boot, so that's cool. All right, guys, so let's get into iOS 9.3 itself on the iPod Touch, and it does include quite a few features such as notes, health, and iBooks improvements. Those are some of the main features, but it doesn't include the night shift as we're going to show here in the panel, which is kind of a bummer because this is a huge feature to iOS 9.3. So if you got the iPod Touch, you're not getting that night shift feature as shown here on an iPhone 5S. So the first feature in iOS 9.3 that we're going to talk about is the notes improvements. So you can see that we do have protection of notes through, your personal data, Touch ID, and passcodes. Also, when sketching, you can quickly bring up fresh canvas and two-finger swipes and such things like that. You can also show thumbnails instead of large attachments, but there's quite a few. There also was Apple Health improvements for your iWatch, such as, moving, exercising, activity data, and a few third-party apps. Also in iBooks, you can see we now have support for iCloud syncing, which is awesome if you have several Apple devices and you like to read on your iPod and you want to go out and then you want to read on your iPhone. That's a pretty cool enhancement here for the iPod Touch 5th. Also, in the news application for iOS 9.3 on the iPod Touch, you can now pick top stories from different sections, and it's greatly improved. You can play videos right from the stories right inside of the application, and you can also read and watch videos in landscape orientation, but this is probably only on the iPhone 6 Plus, so it's probably not going to be found here. And you could change text sizes and articles, making it for an easy and more enjoyable news reading experience. So that is a plus here for iOS 9.3. In this section, let's just do a general UI performance test, just kind of going through the applications, and you can see that, going through the notification tray, it looks pretty smooth, but there is a bit of a hiccup. As you can see, there was a bit of a hiccup there. This does not perform the best, as this processor in the iPod Touch 5th generation is getting quite old here. It's not the best you're gonna see, but overall, just hopping in through the power button, home button, everything seems to be performing okay here. Swiping in and out. General UI or basic tasking should be fine here on the iPod Touch 5th generation, but getting into the applications is where we might see a bit of a hiccup, and we're gonna do that in this next test. But you can see the camera opens right up, takes a picture, but we're gonna talk more about the camera later. And you can go through each one of them, but there is a bit of a lag in between. So I would say if you have the iPod Touch 5th generation, it is gonna require some patience here. But overall, scrolling is buttery smooth on the home screen, just a bit of lag here. Guys, let's get into this app switching test, or the ADD test. You can see I have nothing open here. Let's go over into the app switching folder, and you can go into calendar, and we'll back out of there. Let's go into weather, and let's wait for that, and let's back out of there. Let's go into calculator. As you can see, this is not very speedy and it's pretty disappointing. Let's go into maps, but the processor is a quite bit old, and that's why they released the 6th generation iPod Touch. And you can see the Safari. We're waiting on that still for, this blog to open. iPhone SE wallpaper. Going into the App Store, this took quite a bit of time. And overall, like I say, if you want the speediest iPod, you need to get the 6th generation, because these apps are taking quite a bit of time. This is like iPhone 4S speed here on the iPod Touch 5th generation. Going to that news application, let's come back out. Let's go into contacts. Let's come back out and let's go into clock. And you can see this app switching test was not the speediest we've ever seen here on the channel. Let's see how the multitasking is. You can see little bug there. So let's go into clock. Let's come back out. Let's go into contacts. Let's come back out. Let's try to scroll over. You can see there was a little bit of lag there. Let's go into, you can see there's a little bit of a lag from the time that I actually press my finger and move over. You can see it again. It just lags when, you know, touch response. So, and it doesn't slide over quite as smooth as we've seen on the 64-bit chips like the Apple iPhone 5S or other devices. So multitasking is not very enjoyable here on the iPod Touch 5th generation. Just got to keep it real with you guys. Get into the camera of the iPod Touch 5th generation, and we're just kind of slow the speed. So opening it up, you can see that it does open pretty quickly. Not gonna blow your socks off, not amazingly fast, but scrolling through everything does seem to work just fine. But once again, it's just not the fastest. You do have your filters here, all of those cool filters, and you do get all of the features of the camera on the iPod Touch 5th generation except for slow motion. So it does have a great camera still overall, 5 megapixel, but color accuracy and sharpness is pretty good on this camera, and video works just fine. Although it's similar to the kind of quality you're gonna get on like the iPads, which is the Apple's lower camera, you know, specs, but overall not too bad, not too shabby. The camera should work for you if you're somebody who just needs to take some quick snaps. It doesn't need the most blazing fast, most sharp camera in the world. Hello. That's the front-facing camera. Alright guys, that pretty much wraps this video review up of the iPod Touch 5th generation. Should you guys update to iOS 9.3 for the iPod Touch? And my answer is probably not. If you're on one of the older, quicker versions of iOS, I would, you know, just stay on that, because this is actually getting quite slow and quite unbearable if you're somebody who is used to using, you know, faster devices. Most budget Android phones will smoke this device right here. So, you know, I wouldn't do it unless you absolutely want all those features. I would just go ahead and get myself an iPhone, a later iPhone, which runs a lot better. But go ahead and leave it a thumbs up down below if you enjoyed it. And I will catch you all in the next episode. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Be well and peace.